So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy Ellen. I'm back. And today, man, we're going to check out 3 unsolved mysteries with mysterious phone calls, part 7. All right, shout out to Criminally Listed. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. Join the fam. And prepare yourselves. Let's check it out.
Number 3, Stephen Chait. In the spring of 1972, 20-year-old Stephen Chait was enrolled at Columbia University in New York City. He lived on campus in Fernald Hall. He worked part-time at a delicatessen. Stephen was the eldest of Harry and Gloria Chait's 3 children. He was always considered bright. His mother said he was reading the New York Times and U.S. News and World Report by the time he was 9 years old. He was also a great athlete who excelled at track. He was on Columbia's relay team. Initially, Stephen was enrolled in engineering, but then he got a C in a key course and he was devastated. He had never gotten a C before. So he decided to change his major to art history. Even after changing...
Dang, 1 C made you change your major? You don't want to see some of the grades I got then.
Majors, he was depressed by his perceived failure because he was a perfectionist. His mother said that he tended to feel like the world had failed him, or that he had failed it. On March 13th, 1972, Stephen spent most of the morning listening to music on his bed. He preferred classical music. He got up and put on his jacket and his knit hat. He told his roommate to take it slow and then walked out of their dorm room. 20-year-old Stephen Chait was never seen again. His friends waited 2 days before they contacted Stephen's parents. Gloria and Harry reported him missing to the police. The police thought that he would return voluntarily, so no searches were conducted for him. Unfortunately, the police were wrong, and Stephen's family never saw him again.
That always gets me, the whole no immediate search. He just probably doing this. He'll turn up. And he didn't turn up. Like, that bothers me a lot to hear that, man, when they don't take it serious or they say, oh, he'll just turn up. That's my kid, man. What are you talking about?
Police were wrong, and Stephen's family never saw him again. But his mother may have heard from him. Starting on Mother's Day 1972, about 2 months after he went missing, she started receiving odd phone calls. The caller wouldn't say anything. She would get these calls 2 or 3 times a year. Gloria thought that the caller was Stephen. She would say his name and tell him she loved him. She also begged for him to come home. The caller wouldn't say anything. The caller would stay on the line for several minutes before hanging up. These calls continued for 25 years, and then suddenly, in 1997, they stopped. Gloria kept a log of them, but she never found out who made the calls. Stephen's disappearance was hard on his family. Gloria was depressed and would cry often.
I'm surprised that stress didn't, you know what I mean, wasn't to her detriment. Imagine something that traumatic happening. Your child goes missing. And I thought I had this muted, my bad, y'all. And your child goes missing. And then you receive random phone calls for 25 years. And the only person you could think of it being is your child. And in my case, I would think it's either my child or my child's abductor or killer or whoever. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine that, bro. And she kept a log of it, man. My heart goes out to her.
Harry developed a drinking problem. Stephen's brother also suffered from depression. His sister found the sadness of the home unbearable, so she stayed away as much as possible. Gloria and Harry also lost all their friends because people felt uncomfortable around them. But eventually, things got better for the family. Gloria joined a support group for families of missing people and made new friends. Harry eventually quit drinking. Tragically, Harry died of a brain hemorrhage in 2002. In 2005, 33 years after Stephen went missing, Gloria decided to pack up Stephen's clothes and give them to charity. In 2012, New York City's medical examiner's office started exhuming bodies from paupers' graves on Hart Island. They were hoping to solve some missing persons cases using new technology like DNA. But Stephen's body was not among the bodies that were exhumed. Gloria.
Then you would be like, oh, thank gosh, it's not in there. But then it still continues as, is he alive or isn't he? So it's like, you're happy, but you're still sad at the same time, man. And see what it did to that family, though?
Gloria knew her son was depressed when he went missing, but she doesn't believe he died by suicide. Instead, she thinks he walked away from this life and started a new one. She hoped to find out what happened to her son during her lifetime, but sadly, she didn't. Gloria Chait died in June 2020 at the age of 91. If Stephen Chait is still alive, he'd be 71 years old at the time of this recording. Number 2. Sheri Rowland. In the winter of 1982, 20-year-old Sheri Rowland, who lived in Fort Worth, Texas, was enrolled in modeling school. One problem was that Rowland was 5'4", so she was too short to be a runway model or a high fashion model. However, people at the school still thought she could do specialty modeling and specialty photography. Rowland worked at a 7-Eleven convenience store to make ends meet between modeling jobs. She started working there at the end of summer 1982. 20-year-old Sheri Rowland went to work on the night of November 27th to work the overnight shift alone. Shortly after arriving there, she started receiving obscene phone calls. The calls disturbed Rowland so much that she called her boyfriend. He told her to call the police, so she did. The police agreed to do checks on her throughout the night. An officer went to the store at 1:30 a.m. and he spoke with Rowland. The calls had spooked her, but she didn't seem too worried. The officer came back at 2:20 a.m. He stayed in the car and Rowland waved at him. At 3:52 a.m., he returned to the store for the third time. This time, he didn't see Rowland. He entered the store and saw a trail of blood leading to the back room. He followed the trail of blood. In the back of the store was the dead body of 20-year-old Sheri Rowland.
And I was going to commend them because I always been the type of person that think, listen, man, these convenience stores, gas stations, whatever, they need a cop. If we had enough available. I know our police stations are short-staffed tremendously right now. You know what I mean? Trust me, I found that firsthand last night. I'll tell you about that story on another video. But they're short-staffed tremendously. You know what I mean? But I always thought 7-Elevens, gas station, time savers, whatever you have, they need a police officer or patrol officer or whatever you classify them there on site, man, especially nights, especially at night, man. That's why I always looked at those clerks inside those gas stations as some brave souls, bro. Because it always seems like something goes down there. Something always goes down. Something is always bound to happen. And you're just there. You know what I mean? And a lot of them don't have ways to protect themselves. And they put up this little plexiglass little thing. No. No, they need an officer posted there. You know what I mean? That's why we need more.
She had been shot in the right arm and the chest with a shotgun. Near the register were 2 spent 20 gauge shotgun shells. Her pants had also been pulled down. The medical examiner determined that she had been raped. The police checked the register. It appeared that Rowland checked the register at 3 a.m. Then the killer pressed the no sale button to open the register. There was blood on the no sale key. It is believed that the killer stole about $20, which is about $60 in 2022. The police said that the phone calls may be connected to the murder, but they refused to tell reporters what the callers said. They said they wouldn't be able to print most of it because it was pretty rough, pretty bad. The police had a long list of suspects. Many of them were suspects in other armed robberies in the area. However, they were all eliminated as suspects. In May 1983, 5 months after the murder, the police arrested a 20-year-old drifter named Leslie Dwayne Spawn. The police said he had made a statement that incriminated him, but the charges were later dropped because the police learned that Spawn was in jail on the night of the murder.
How do you mess that one up? That was a huge mess up right there.
After that, the case went cold, and it's been that way ever since. The police said that the case is open and they are still investigating. They have not said for sure if the calls are connected to the murder. However, what are the odds that Rowland received obscene and disturbing phone calls on the same night she was raped and murdered? It has been nearly 40 years since 20-year-old Sheri Rowland was murdered. Her surviving family members still hold out hope that her case will be solved. Number 1. Eve Stratford and Lynn Whedon. Eve Stratford was born in 1953 in Dortmund, West Germany. Her father was an English medic who was stationed in West Germany after World War II. While she was young, the Stratford family moved to England and settled in Hampshire. In 1973, Stratford started working at the Playboy Club in London. She had the position of promotion bunny, so she was one of the top earners at the club. In 1974, a scout from Playboy magazine traveled from the United States to see if Stratford could be one of the Playmates of the month. The scout thought that Stratford needed to lose a few pounds before she could pose for the magazine. After that, Stratford took a 2-month leave of absence from the club and began visiting modeling agencies. She signed with an agent and got 2 modeling jobs. One was to appear on the cover of a South African crime novel. In the photo, a man is holding a knife to her throat. The second was Mayfair, a British adult magazine geared towards men. It's very similar to Playboy. Stratford posed nude for the magazine, and she was Girl of the Month in March 1975. She used the name Eva von Bach. Along with the photos was an interview with Stratford. The interview included the statement, "If a man is truly a man and not effeminate in any way, he'll know how to handle me. I like to be dominated, not whipped and tied up or things like that, but just kept in my place. I get very bored with straight sex. I like playing little games with my lovers to turn us both on."
Okay, so that right there lets you know what type of potential killer you looking at. All right. She said she kind of set herself up in those type of people that she was attracted to. And that's scary. You know what I mean? Not to mention the job that you held working for Hefner. You know what I mean? It's people who really sought out these women because they watched them so much. You know what I'm saying? And they became obsessed with them. So you heard a lot of stories about stuff like that happening, man. Yeah, she set herself up for, oh my gosh, and it's still no excuse for somebody to do that though. But I would think this makes the police job that much more harder, man. It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Unfortunately, the Mayfair spread got Stratford in trouble at work. Posing for a Playboy rival was against the rules of the Playboy Club, so she was suspended from working there for 3 months. On March 18, 1975, a few days after the magazine was published, Stratford met with her agent and then met with a publisher. She then purchased some dry flowers at a shopping center. She took the train home and arrived at her station at 3:45 p.m. She then walked 3/4 of a mile to her flat that she shared with her boyfriend, Tony Preece, and 2 of his bandmates. Preece was the lead singer of the psychedelic rock band Onyx. The band had some success, but things weren't going well then, so Preece had a day job as a forklift operator. As Stratford walked home, it started raining. Displeased, Stratford arrived home at about 4:10 p.m. When she got home, she stripped off her wet clothes in her bedroom. At 4:30, the downstairs neighbor heard Stratford talking to a man. 45 minutes later, the neighbor heard a loud thump, like a chair had fallen over.
Oh.
Then she heard footsteps going down the stairs. Shortly after that, the telephone in Stratford's flat started ringing, but no one answered it. At 5:25, about 10 minutes after hearing someone leave the flat, Stratford's boyfriend, Tony Preece, and another one of the tenants arrived home. In the bedroom, they found a gruesome scene. 20-year-old Eve Stratford had been brutally murdered. Her body.
See, that's the thing with some of these jobs and gigs that you pick up doing this type of thing. You don't know who you meeting. You don't. You know what I mean? Especially when you're looking to pick up extra work. You meet people, you think they're credible, they're not. They say they're this person, they're not. And you just don't know. That's a dangerous little ecosystem there to be involved in. That's a dangerous one right there, man. Imagine how many people she met.
Was on the floor beside the bed. Her throat had been cut from ear to ear 8 to 12 times. She had been nearly decapitated. She was wearing a bra and underwear and a negligee. The negligee was open in the front. The belt from the negligee, along with one of her stockings, were used to bound her wrists behind her back. Her other stocking was tied around one of her ankles. The medical examiner determined that Stratford had sex that afternoon, but it's unknown if it was consensual or rape. The police thought that the sex was consensual and that she was killed afterward. They thought this because there were no signs of a break-in or forced entry. Plus, she was wearing her underwear, a bra, and the negligee. The police surmised if she had been raped, she probably would have been wearing less clothing. The police eliminated Tony Preece as a suspect because he had an airtight alibi. Another suspect was the photographer who took the photo of the crime novel. The police thought it was too much of a coincidence that he'd photograph her with a knife being held against her throat and then her throat was slit. But he was ruled out as a suspect as well. The police learned that Stratford started receiving mysterious phone calls shortly after the Mayfair issue was published. Sometimes the caller wouldn't say anything and then hang up. Other times he would threaten her or say obscene things. On the day she was killed, she received 3 of these phone calls. Another bunny who worked at the Playboy Club, Marilyn Looms, said that after she posed for Mayfair 3 months before Stratford, she received similar phone calls. The caller would threaten her or hang up. The police initially believed that Stratford knew her killer and the Mayfair issue set him off for some reason. They noted that the phone call started after the issue was published. But what was odd was that Mayfair didn't publish her real name. Plus, her phone number and address were unlisted. But the killer knew where she lived. After Stratford got home,
Are you sure we gonna rule out the boyfriend? And not to mention his bandmates as well. When you have a girlfriend that works in that industry, who's to say your bandmates and friends ain't gonna be jealous that you're dating that girl and wanna date her as well and may wanna do something to, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I said it's like a needle in a haystack with a story, with a case like this.
she took out her clothes because they were wet. There were no signs of a break-in or forced entry. This suggests that Stratford knew her killer and felt comfortable letting him into the apartment while she was only wearing her underwear and possibly a negligee. She may have even had consensual sex with him before she was murdered. But the police eliminated all the men in Stratford's life. Then, the case went cold. Nearly 4 years later, there was another murder that was very similar to Eve Stratford's murder. On January 19, 1979, mother of two, 29-year-old Linda Farrow, returned to the home that she shared with her boyfriend. Her home was 5 miles away from Stratford's home. Farrow and her husband had split up a year earlier. Farrow was 4 months pregnant with her new boyfriend's child. That afternoon, Farrow went out shopping. When her two daughters, who were 11 and 8, returned home from school, they found her dead body in the hallway. Her throat had been slit nearly to the point of decapitation. There were no signs of a break-in or forced entry. The police thought that Farrow knew her killer, or he was waiting for her to get home, and then he slipped into the home after she walked in the door. There were several similarities between the cases. Both victims were attractive women with blonde hair in their 20s. Both victims worked at night spots in London's West End. Their throats had both been slashed. They were killed in their homes with no signs of a break-in or forced entry. Unfortunately, no arrests were made in Farrow's case. It also provided no new suspects in Eve Stratford's murder, so both murders went cold.
I hope they use like the DNA genealogy thing right now and be able to use that to, if they gain some samples, hopefully they could use that with today's technology and get this case solved.
Decades went by. Then in 2007, over 32 years after Eve Stratford's murder, there was an unexpected break in her case. DNA from her murder had been linked to another murder.
Yes.
However, it wasn't Linda Farrow's murder. Instead, it was the murder of 16-year-old Lynn Beaton. 6 months after Stratford's murder, on September 3rd, 1975, Beaton was out with friends. She started walking home alone. She walked down an alleyway she had been told not to use alone at night. But the alleyway was a shortcut to her home, so that night she took it. As she walked, a man snuck up behind her and hit her on the head with a blunt object, possibly a lead pipe. This blow fractured her skull. The attacker picked her up and placed her on the other side of the fence where there was a power substation. He then dragged her to an isolated area. He raped her and left her there unconscious. The next morning, Rita was found and she was taken to the hospital. She never regained consciousness and died a week after the attack. For many reasons, the two murders were not connected. One reason is that the two women were attacked on the opposite sides of London. Stratford was cut with a knife in her home, and Whedon was attacked with a blunt object while walking home and then raped in a public area. Stratford was an outgoing Playboy bunny who had recently posed nude for a magazine. Whedon was a reserve schoolgirl.
They sort of look alike, don't they? I'm just staring at the faces right now. They kind of look alike. So maybe possibly the killer has a specific type of look or you know what I mean? A type that he likes. Maybe? I don't know. I'm just grasping at this point.
Stratford was stalked and harassed before she was killed, and she possibly knew her killer. Whedon, on the other hand, was a victim of opportunity. Had DNA not connected their murders, investigators may have never surmised the same person committed them. After the connection was made, the police reopened Eve Stratford's case. They took DNA samples from 16 of the most promising suspects, but no match was found. The police also decided to reopen the murder of Linda Farrow. From the evidence, they got a sample of the killer's DNA. The DNA did not match the DNA of the man who killed Stratford and Whedon. In January 2009, on BBC's Crime Watch, a detective said that the suspect in Farrow's murder was her ex-husband. They believe he either killed her or hired someone to kill her. He was apparently unhappy that she left him, moved in with another man, and was pregnant with his baby. But by the time DNA profiles were generated, he had died. There is some speculation that Eve Stratford and Lynn Whedon were killed by a serial killer who murdered other women. However, the police have not publicly addressed other cases that they might suspect are connected. They have only confirmed that the same man killed Eve Stratford and Lynn Whedon. The police hope that the killer told someone about the murders and they'll come forward. Another possibility is that forensic genealogy may be able to help solve the crime. So it may just be a matter of time before one of Britain's most notorious pair of murders is finally solved. Thank you for watching today's video.
That's if he's still alive. He or she is still alive after all this time. You know what I mean? Goodness, man. Y'all be safe out here, bro. Be safe out here, man. It's a lot of craziness going on. Like I said, I experienced something yesterday. I'll sit down with y'all and kick it with y'all and tell y'all that story. But this is insane, man. Be careful who you meet and be wary of who people say they are. Be skeptical. That's okay to be that. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you thought of this video and stick around and stay tuned. Till next one, I'm gone. Peace.